what's up? It's John, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to install the AltStore on your iOS device. The AltStore is an awesome application that allows you to install your favorite emulators like Delta and applications like Uncover plus much more on your iOS device without ever having to worry about it being revoked, which is incredible. Now, the AltStore does require a Windows or Mac computer, and I'm going to be walking you through the whole setup process in this video, as well as how to get around any errors that you may encounter along the way. Now, I've made a video on the AltStore in the past, but a lot has changed since then. Like I mentioned, you can now install Uncover with the AltStore that allows you to jailbreak your iOS device. But even if you don't want to jailbreak, the AltStore is still an amazing application to make sure that your emulators and apps do not get revoked. So without wasting any more time, let's learn how to get the AltStore on our iOS device. And hit that like button before we begin. Alright, so before we jump into our computers, there are a couple requirements that you need to meet in order to follow this tutorial. The first one is if you're using a Mac computer, you need to be running OS 10.14.4 or higher. If you're on Windows, you need to be on Windows 10. The second requirement is that if you are on Windows, you need to have iTunes downloaded from apple.com/iTunes, which I have linked in the description below. If you have the Microsoft version of iTunes, uninstall it and then download the iTunes from apple.com/iTunes. That is super important. And the same thing goes for iCloud. You will need to have iCloud downloaded on your Windows computer, and it needs to be from Apple, which I'll have the download link in the description below. Finally, your iOS device needs to be on iOS 12.2 or higher, or else the AltStore won't work. It's only compatible with iOS 12.2 and up. With all of that being said, if you meet those requirements, we can continue with the tutorial. The first thing you want to do is grab your iOS device's charging cable and plug it into your computer. If this is the first time that you're plugging your iOS device into your computer, you'll get a pop-up on your iOS device that says trust this computer. Tap on trust and input your password if you have one. If you're on PC, then open iTunes and click on continue, and then you'll see your iOS device appear in iTunes. And the same thing goes for Mac, or if you're running Mac Catalina, you'll see your iOS device in Finder. Once you find your iOS device, make sure to click on Sync iPhone over Wi-Fi on your Mac computer, as well as Windows. You can scroll down and find that under Options. This is super important. And now make sure that your iOS device stays plugged into your computer and unlocked throughout this whole process. Now on your computer, you can open your favorite web browser and type in the URL AltStore.io. Once you arrive at the AltStore website, you can scroll down to the bottom and download the alt server for Windows or Mac. If you're on Mac, you'll get a altserver.zip file, and if you're on Windows, you'll get an altinstaller.zip file. Starting with Windows, what you want to do is right-click on Alt Installer and then click on Extract All. It'll give you a pop-up like so. Make sure that little checkbox is checked and then hit Extract. From here, you'll get another pop-up like this, and make sure you open the setup file and not the Alt Installer file, and then go through the setup wizard. If you're on Mac, what you want to do is double-click altserver.zip, which will give you the AltServer application, and then open Finder and go to your Applications folder and drag the AltServer application into your Application folder. From here, you can double-click on the AltServer to open it, and it'll give you a pop-up. Just click on Open, and the AltServer will actually open in the top right toolbar of your Mac device. So it's not a window. All you have to do is go to the toolbar, click on it, and from here, we want to click on Install Mail Plugin. Then you'll get a pop-up like this telling you about the Mail plugin. This is a crucial part of the AltStore. Without it, it will not work. So click on Install Mail Plugin, put in your password, and then hit OK. From here, you can scroll down to your Mail application and open it. When using the AltServer, you want to make sure that your Mail application is always open. Then head to the top left and click on Mail, click on Preferences, and then make sure you're in the General tab, and then scroll down to the Manage Plugins button, where you'll see the Alt plugin. Make sure that little checkbox is checked. If it's not, check it and then hit Apply and restart Mail. If yours was already checked like mine was, just hit Cancel and Exit. From here, we can head back to the top right toolbar of our Mac device, and go to install AltStore, and hopefully you'll see your iOS device there. Now heading back to Windows, once you have the Alt server installed, make sure that you also open iTunes and iCloud. Once you have iTunes and iCloud open, you can head to the bottom left of your Windows computer and search for Alt server, and make sure you click on Run as Administrator, not Open. This is super important. From here, you'll get a pop-up, just click on Yes, and then your Windows Defender firewall might give you a warning. This is completely normal. This happens because Windows doesn't know what the Alt server is. Just make sure the 2 checkboxes are checked and then click on Allow Access and you'll be good to go. From here, the Alt server will open in your bottom right toolbar. Click on that little arrow, and the Alt server is that little diamond. From here, you can scroll up and click on Install AltStore, but if you don't see your iOS device there, if it says no connected devices, that means your iOS device is not connected to your computer. So make sure your iOS device is connected to your computer with that charging cable, and make sure that you can see it on iTunes if you're on Windows, and if you're on Mac, make sure that you can see it in Finder or iTunes, and make sure that your iOS device is unlocked on the home screen throughout this whole process. Now you should see your iOS device in the Alt server. If you don't, quit it and reopen it. And to install the AltStore, just click on your iOS device. It'll ask you to put in your Apple ID and password. Don't worry, this is completely safe. No one is going to see your Apple ID or password. Now, at this point, this is where a lot of errors occur for people that are trying to use the Alt server. Make sure that you put in your Apple ID and password correctly. Capitalization is super important. If you get a pop-up that says your Apple ID and password is incorrect and you're certain that you're putting it in correctly, then what you want to do is change your password and then try again with that new password, and it should work for you. At this point, if you've done that and it still tells you that your Apple ID and password are incorrect, or that your Apple ID cannot be used with Xcode, or you get a strange error, then what you want to do is create a new Apple ID. I'll have a link in the description below where you can create a new Apple ID. You can put in whatever information you want and just use this Apple ID for the AltStore and the Alt server, and it should work fine. If you're on Windows, then make sure that you log into that new Apple ID in iCloud as well. Another error that can occur is if you're on Windows, the Alt server may tell you that you are using a version of iTunes or iCloud that is from the Microsoft Store. If you get this pop-up, uninstall iTunes, uninstall iCloud, and then reinstall them using the links that I have in the description below that are directly from Apple, and those will work with the Alt server, and you should be able to get past that pop-up. Just make sure that once you download iTunes and iCloud, that they are open and running while the Alt server is trying to install the AltStore on your iOS device. Finally, if you have two-step verification connected to your Apple ID, sometimes it'll ask you for a 6-digit code after you sign in, and you'll get that 6-digit code on one of your iOS devices. If it doesn't appear on any of your iOS devices, you can actually make it appear on your iOS device by heading to Settings, clicking on your Apple ID, going to Password and Security, and then scrolling down to Get Verification Code, and it'll give you that 6-digit code that you need to input into the Alt server in order for you to verify your Apple ID and install the AltStore. At this point, hopefully you were able to install the AltStore on your iOS device, and if you're on Windows, you'll see a little pop-up at the bottom right corner. If you're on Mac, you'll see a pop-up at the top right corner that says installing AltStore to your iOS device, and then it'll say installation successful. Now let's jump into our iOS device, where you should have the AltStore installed somewhere on your home screen. When you try to open it, it'll say untrusted developer. To get around that, just open Settings, scroll down to General, scroll down to Device Management, and you'll see your Apple ID. Go ahead and tap on it and trust it. Once you've done that, you'll be able to open the AltStore. Now, once you open the AltStore, it'll give you a pop-up. Just tap on Allow. And then from here, you want to head to the Settings tab at the bottom right. And then you want to sign in with your Apple ID. Here you want to sign in with the same exact Apple ID that you used to sign in to the alt server on your computer. It's super important that you use the same Apple ID on your iOS device as you used on your computer in order for everything to work smoothly. Once you're signed in, it'll give you this list of steps. We should have already done 1 and 2. If you haven't done number 2, make sure that you do that on your computer now. Anyways, now we can head into the My Apps section of the AltStore, and I want to take some time to explain to you exactly how the AltStore works so that you don't get confused. The AltStore works in conjunction with the alt server on your computer. You can only download apps from the AltStore or install apps via their IPA on the AltStore when you're connected to the alt server on your computer. So that means you need to be connected via the lightning cable that you are connected to now, or via Wi-Fi on the same network that your computer is on. Now, these apps will never be revoked as long as you continue to refresh them every 7 days. You can refresh the applications by making sure to plug your iOS device into your computer and then opening the AltStore and making sure the alt server is also running on your computer, and then hitting refresh all in this My Apps tab. You can also make sure that your apps refresh by having iTunes Wi-Fi sync on, which was that second step I mentioned earlier, and just having your iOS device connected to the same Wi-Fi network as your computer, and it'll automatically refresh in the background before that 7 days is up. Now that you know how the AltStore works, we can now get apps like Delta and Uncover on our iOS device. So you can actually find Delta by going to the Browse tab, and I recommend that you download Delta even if you don't want it, just to make sure that your AltStore is working correctly. So head to that Browse section and tap on Get for Delta, and if you get a pop-up that says cannot connect to AltStore, that means your iOS device is not communicating with the alt server. So hop on your PC or Mac and make sure that you see your iOS device in the alt server, as well as in iTunes if you're on a PC, or in Finder if you're on your Mac. And then try installing Delta through the AltStore again, and it should install for you. If not, I'll have an FAQ linked in the description below. Once you have Delta installed, we can now learn how to get Uncover if you're interested in learning how to get that application. So what you want to do is open Safari and type in the URL uncover.dev, which I'll also have linked in the description below. When you type out Uncover, make sure that O is a 0, and it'll take you to this website right here where you can download the Uncover IPA by hitting that big blue button and then tapping on the download pop-up that appears in Safari. From here, you can click on the download manager button at the top right and watch as the IPA downloads. Once it's done, click on the magnifying glass and you'll see the Uncover IPA in your Files application. Tap on it and then hit the little share button at the bottom left. Scroll to the left and click on More. And then from here, you want to hit copy to AltStore, and it'll install the Uncover application on your iOS device, which is awesome. The AltStore can install IPAs onto your iOS device. As of now, that feature is still in beta and it only works on Uncover, but I'll be showing you how to join the beta later in this video. Anyways, once you have Uncover installed and it appears in your My Apps tab, you'll see it in your home screen, and you can go ahead and open it. And if your iOS device can be jailbroken, it's the right device and model as well as on the right firmware, you'll be able to tap that jailbreak button and jailbreak your iOS device. If not, unfortunately, you cannot jailbreak. Anyways, like I was saying, with the AltStore, you can download different applications and emulators, but you will need the AltStore beta as of the release of this video. And you can join the beta by going to the settings at the bottom right and tapping on join the beta. And then you can view Riley Testut's Patreon, the creator of the AltStore. By supporting his Patreon with a $3 donation, you can actually get access to the AltStore beta and test it out, as well as get the ability to play Delta with Nintendo DS support and install other emulators and applications that you want on your iOS device, similar to what I just showed with Uncover. Now, he also has other Patreon tiers with some great incentives as well that you can join if you're interested. Once you've joined his Patreon, you can link your Patreon in that same settings tab. And once you have your Patreon linked to the AltStore, you'll be able to download the AltStore beta. Once the AltStore beta is installed, you can head to your home screen and open the new AltStore, and you'll have to sign into your Apple ID again in this new AltStore beta application, just like you did in the original AltStore. And if you'd like, you can actually delete the old AltStore as well as the older version of Delta to get the new beta version of Delta in this new beta AltStore, which will have Nintendo DS support. Now, like I mentioned, with this beta version of AltStore, you can install any IPA into your iOS device. So that means any emulator or application that you'd like, all you need is the IPA. And if you head to my website, appmarket.tech in Safari, you'll see that you can download emulators like PPSSPP, Provenance, iNDS, and more by simply tapping on their icon. And then you can scroll down to the bottom of the page where you'll see the IPA is available for download by just clicking on it. And then you can tap on the download button and it'll download a zip file with the IPA inside it that you can use to install into the AltStore. Now, these IPAs are pretty big files, so it will take some time. Just be patient, and of course the speeds depend on your internet. But once it's done, you can go ahead and click on that magnifying glass at the top right, and it'll open your .zip file into files. And then all you have to do is tap on the .zip file and it'll extract the .ipa out of the .zip file. Tap on that IPA and then hit the share button at the bottom left. Then scroll all the way to the right and click on more, and you can copy to AltStore. I still haven't deleted my older AltStore, so I don't know which one is the correct one. So what you can also do is open the AltStore beta and then go to the My Apps tab, click the plus at the top, click on OK, and then find your IPA and tap on it, and it'll begin to install in the AltStore. You'll know that it's installing because you'll see the green bar under My Apps move from left to right. And once it's done, it'll appear under your installed section, which is super cool. So just like that, you were able to install an IPA on your iOS device, and it'll never be revoked because you can continue to refresh the applications using the Alt server in conjunction with the AltStore. And that's everything you need to know about the AltStore. I hope you were able to install Delta, Uncover, or any application that you wanted to get on your iOS device, and that it never expires or gets revoked. If you found this video helpful, then please hit that like button as it helps out the video tremendously, and I truly appreciate it. If you need help with anything regarding the AltStore, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll try my best to get back to you. Finally, if you are new to the channel, please subscribe and click that notification bell to be notified whenever I upload a video. There's a ton of people that watch my videos and are not subscribed, so it takes 2 seconds to change that. Just click that subscribe button. And I guess I will see you all in the next video. Until then, goodbye.